In this episode, I'm going to do a full service on a dual 704 direct drive semi-automatic turntable. This one was completely dead. It does not turn. It doesn't do anything when you pick up the arm. So we're going to pull this one apart, show you guys where the problem is and how to go about fixing it and get this thing back to working status. Coming right up next on Tech Talk. This one's a direct drive motor, unlike some of the other ones, which have been rim drive and belt drive. A little more complex to make a direct drive motor operate. So this one could be interesting. This is the first time I've seen one of these dual 704s, but this is going to use a three-phase motor, and it's going to generate the motor control signals. The rotating magnetic field basically is generated and sent to the three coils which are inside the motor assembly here. The electronic circuitry that controls that, according to the owner of this one, it does nothing. It does not turn, it does not do anything. So could be complex, could be simple. Let's give it power and see whether it attempts to do anything. Does not attempt to start. So we could have a switching problem on this. We'll lift the base out, the actual turntable assembly out of the base. So to take the base off, or take the unit out of the base, you loosen the transport screws slightly so that they are free flowing, and you can tilt them at a little bit of an angle to release the base from the unit. Like all the rest of them, they just lift out. As we get the unit out of its base, you will see that this one here is a totally different animal than any of the other ones. I'm just going to tighten down the little set screws here just so it has something to sit on. We'll turn it on its side and you'll see that this one here has a lot of electronic circuitry on it. So you've got a power transformer. This one runs on low voltage. There's a power transformer and the motor speed control and motor phase generation. And then here's the motor itself. It also features a frequency generator in the motor, which is going to be probably these two wires here, which provides feedback so that the unit knows the speed that it's going. And these adjustments here would be speed adjustments for 33 and 45, plus pitch control, and the speed is selected by just a switch somewhere on here. Where's the switch? Yeah, 33 and 45 is selected through this switch here, which is the electrical switch. When the unit, when the arm is lifted off the holder, there will be a switch that should turn the system on. I'm just looking for where the switch is. So how these mechanisms operate, I'm just going to throw some more light on it here to make it probably a little easier to see. So how these mechanisms operate is when the tone arm is lifted, this spring here, which is sticking, this is supposed to pull into place and turn the system on, and it was sticking like that. You see, now it's not working. And what happens on these units, when the tone arm moves into place, it's supposed to move this lever like this to turns on the system. But what happens is the grease right in here gums up this arm. This arm is supposed to be sitting up like that so that when the tone arm is lifted, it pulls it. But it's not. It's supposed to pull it over like that. And once that happens, it will turn on the motor. But the grease here has dried up. So what we need to do is we need to clean all this grease in here to allow this mechanism to pivot freely. The easiest way to do that is I'm going to put the unit up on some blocks so that I can turn it right upside down, and then we can work on it. But that's where the problem with this one is. Stuff falling down here behind me. Some bag of zip ties. Anyway, that's what's happening on this. Is this grease has dried up, and it's not tripping it. Normally, what happens when this trips is this pulls the lever over, which turns on the power switch, which is located down here. It's just a simple AC power switch right here. So when this lever moves, it releases that switch and that turns on the power, and you can see the motor is rotating. And then when you pick the arm up and move the arm back, because this is a manual mechanism, it has an end of record auto stop. That will just lift the arm and stop it, right? It doesn't start up again until you actually move the arm back, and that will reset this thing so that it can pull the switch again, right? And it'll shut it off. So what's happening is the grease is dried up on here, so the little spring can't pull this little cog back into place. And that's what's happened on this one. So the hinge that's giving us the trouble is this one right here. Right there. There's a little spring that pushes this back, right? And it's not returning. And the spring is right, you can't see it, I know, from the angle that you are. If I drop the camera down, you'll be able to see it, but you can't see it from that angle, but it's there. So to get at it, I'm going to have to remove this bracket assembly, which I need to do it anyway because I got to clean under it. So I'm just going to take off the E-clips. Somebody's going to correct me and tell me it's a C-clip, but in fact, this is an E-clip. You see, because it looks like the letter E. A C-clip does not have this little piece protruding. So I am calling it what it is. It is an E-clip, not a C-clip. We're going to remove the two E-clips. And it's an E-clip, not an eclipse. An eclipse is what happens when the moon blocks out the sun and it gets dark during the day. Or, in the other case, when the Earth blocks out the sun from the moon. That's an eclipse. This is an E-clip. I guess an eclipse is also a car too, but... Okay, I'm trying to be funny. We're going to remove this gummed up bracket. And here is the pivot that we are interested in. Actually, we're interested in all the pivots because if the grease is dry on one, it's going to be dry on all of them. So we're going to take off this E-clip here as well as this E-clip over here and pop this thing apart. And then I'll proceed to lose all the E-clips. Okay, that's taken apart. Now I should be able to pop apart this mechanism here. This should just open up. When I get all the dried grease out of it, it will. And then we lose the spring, you see. That's the whole point. So we can lose the spring. I got to clean this mess up here. This one here is actually not in too bad a shape, but now that the clip is off, I can lift this up as well. And we'll just wipe down this and put some new lubricant in. I don't even think I have to take that one off, to tell you guys the truth. I think that one's okay. I can just get some new lubricant in there. We'll clean this lubricant out first. Get some new stuff in there. In case you guys are going to wonder what type of magical stuff I'm going to use for this, it's called WD-40. Because it will dissolve the old grease quite nicely. It's got solvents in it. And it will take off the old grease quite nicely. Normally I would use isopropyl alcohol, but there's a problem right now, and that problem is that trying to get 99% isopropyl alcohol is like trying to pick the lottery numbers. The stuff is just not out there right now, thanks to that nasty virus that's going around called COVID. All the shops are sold out. Everybody's buying it as a disinfectant, and they're using it to make hand sanitizer. and there's just none available. So we use the next best thing, which just happens to work very well for cleaning metal. WD-40. Stop squeaks too. Okay, that should be clean. We'll clean the underside here where the two surfaces meet. And now I can start to put this thing back together. If I can remember how it goes on like that. And then one side of it clips around here, like that, and the other side of it clips around there. And that's what holds that together. Next, we'll clean up the rest of the control arm. Again, I'll just use my WD-40. We'll wipe the grease off, the excess dried up grease here. Clean this all up. That goes all like that. Just seeing how it's fitting together. We'll put our clips back on first. We'll first put this E-clip on over here. Get some molly coat. Just a little bit, just to lubricate some of the more fragile of the points that need to move. Where we want to put a bit of lubricant in there. There, that's working now. See, now it comes back where it's supposed to. And we'll also clean off the grease from the end of this gear, or this cog over here. Oops, my clip fell off. I'll have to do that again. That was interesting, the clip fell off. It looks to be that they're slightly different size, and that might be why it came apart. Okay, this is a slightly smaller clip, because that should not pop off. It took quite a bit of effort to put it on, but it fell off. So it looks like these are just slightly different size. This one is slightly smaller than the others, but as you can see, it's got that's working properly. There is a washer that goes in here first. Okay, let's turn it over and see if it works. That's how it's supposed to work. You see? and tone arm down. And when it gets to the end, it just stops and lifts the tone arm. That is how this one works. Let's put the platter back on, put it into the base, give it a test listen. That bird has been chirping all day, and I'm getting annoyed by it. It's as annoying as the eagle. Except for this thing just doesn't stop. It just chirps all day. I wish the eagle would fly down and eat it. There we go, exactly on speed. There's a pitch control. You can use it to adjust the pitch one way or the other. The idea is to have no motion whatsoever. So now the lines aren't moving. It's going the correct speed. Let's take a listen. I would like to play something that, that I'm not going to get nailed for copyright on, but I don't know what the heck I can play. Let's try a few seconds of this thing. This is a manual start. Oh yeah, it's not in Q mode. Here we go. And then drop the needle. I think I have to check into this. First of all, I've only got sound out of one speaker, which means that one of the wires probably come off on the inside, but the queuing arm is not lifting it up. That just may need an adjustment. So let's check that out. And incidentally, the adjustment for the queuing arm height is this little screw here. This affects the height of the control arm that pushes up the arm. So that's the adjustment to adjust the height of the pickup for queuing. So normally when you have no cartridge installed and you put your fingers in here where the cartridge goes, you would hear hum through both channels. I only hear hum through one channel. So I start inspecting the wiring and I see that somebody has taped up the left side wire. Looks like it's been cut and taped together. Oh yes. You think this is why there's no sound? Who the hell spliced that on? That would explain everything. I'll fix that in a minute. Here I am pulling my hair out as to why I don't have any sound on one channel. And it's because the person that owned this before, the guy that owns it now, tried to do his own repair, it looks like. And just, oh well, we'll just solder everything together. We don't need two conductors in there. I just put the unit back in the base as I'm done with it. That's how not to splice a wire. Slap someone for that. You see, there's two wires in here, not one. You gotta splice them both. Maybe the guy that did this was the guy that wired my garage 70 years ago or whenever the hell it was built. If you guys saw that video on my electrical panel, the sub panel in my garage, I don't know what year that was put in, but it was long before I bought the house, and yeah, it was left a lot to be desired. So we have two conductors in here. We have the shield and we have the audio conductor, and obviously they have to be spliced separately. You solder them all together, you're going to get nothing, which is exactly what the last person did. They soldered them all together. Put some heat shrink tubing on here and do this correctly. Okay, so first we'll solder the inner signal conductor. Tell you, that bird is driving me crazy. I'm almost hoping for a cat to find it. Okay, first we'll take some heat shrink tubing and we'll bring it back over the center conductor, and then we'll shrink this down. Get my heat gun. There. Now, I don't know why I bought clear heat shrink tubing. I guess it was cheap. Must have been cheaper than the colored stuff. That would only explain why I would have bought white or clear heat shrink tubing. Okay, time to play this dirty record again. And I have sound on both channels. Click, clack, pop, pop. Click, pop, click, pop. Finals trademark. All that noise. Of course, this record hasn't been cleaned, but oops. Yeah, you can see when the record gets to the end, it picks up the record, stops the turntable from spinning. The biggest problem with these duals is these bloody connectors here. They get dirty, so we're going to give it a shot of deoxit. Give the pins a shot here as well. Of course, that record was mono, which doesn't really help. So I'm going to play a stereo record and listen to it and see how it sounds in stereo. To set the weight on this one, the adjustments are, first of all, you turn your adjustment here to 0, because this adds your grams for the stylus pressure. So you set it to 0, and you're going to balance it by loosening off this screw and adjusting the weight back and forth to get the arm to almost hang level. Okay, now that it's close, I can tighten that screw, and now I can adjust the fine adjustment. And what I want to do is I want the arm to hang perfectly level, to not go up or not go down. once I get the arm hanging perfectly level, that's pretty close there, then I'll set my weight to 1.5 or 2 grams or whatever the record requires, whatever the stylus requires. Now when I move it over to the groove, drop it, I'll have the correct stylus pressure. If you've never sat through the side 2 of Hamburg Concerto by Focus, it is a listening experience. The track runs for, I don't know, 20 odd minutes. I believe it's like 6 parts to it, but it's just everything runs together. But this is a listening experience to listen to this thing. Both sides of this thing are pretty darn good for, for the supergroup Focus of the day. This was what, if you were into the almost the acid rock fusions of the late 1970s, you had to be into Focus. I forget the exact year this was done. I think it was 73, 74. What's it say on here? It should say 1974. Okay, mid-70s. I've had this thing for years, this record. This was actually one of the ones we used to use when I was in the TV production business. We used to use music from this for intros and extras for shows. This is one of the records I snagged from the studio when I left there. I grabbed a bunch of records when I left. There were ones that we weren't using as much anymore, so I think we had moved on to play composers like Alan Parsons' project. I, Robot was one that was used a lot on stuff, so I grabbed some of the older stuff that wasn't being played. With my boss's blessing, he said, "Yeah, take that old crap and get it out of here." So anyway, these are well-worn records, that's for sure. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one real soon. Bye for now.